So essentially, the U.S. has been characterizing this as more of a listening tour and a chance to build relationships abroad more than anything else. They're saying there's not going to be too much news to be made, but certainly the new U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson will be meeting on the sidelines of the G20 here in Bonn with other ministers, including Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia. They're expected to talk about Ukraine, what to do about the situation in Syria and the fight against the Islamic State. And also, of course, for European leaders in particular, a lot of questions about the transatlantic relationship. Not just NATO, of course, but also these European elections that are coming up in France and Germany. And also, when we're talking about NATO spending, big questions over whether or not the European nations are pulling their weight. Back in 2015, the United States spent some $650 billion on NATO defense budget spending. That was over 70% of the full total spent on NATO for that year. And continuous conversations on the sidelines, not just here at the G20, but also at the NATO summit in Brussels over whether that is enough. Take a listen to what the new Secretary of Defense, General James Mattis, had to say.
It's a fair demand that all who benefit from the best defense in the world carry their proportionate share of the necessary cost to defend freedom. And we should never forget, ultimately, it is freedom that we defend here at NATO.
So essentially, the message there from General James Mattis is that the United States would moderate its support for NATO, depending on whether or not these other NATO countries step up in terms of making their commitments, that full 2% of GDP that they're expected to spend on defense. Guys?
Hadley, there's been various pressure in places like the United Kingdom in terms of Theresa May jumping to meet the new president and inviting him indeed for a state visit. What's the tone on the ground there about other countries and how warmly and openly they're welcoming meetings with General James Mattis and Rex Tillerson? Are they very open to it, or is there a similar sense of apprehension about what it might do for their own political standings back in their respective countries?
I think there's certainly an openness to meeting with Rex Tillerson, because at the end of the day, you have to remember, of course, that he was the CEO of ExxonMobil. There's a lot of, not just apprehension, I would say, but certainly a lot of positivity in terms of finally getting some answers about what U.S. foreign policy is really going to look like. Obviously, the hoopla in the United States over what's been happening with Michael Flynn and the Russia question. Folks here much more focused on what it will mean closer to home for them. Certainly here in Germany, lots of questions about NATO spending, lots of questions about, trade deals and treaties. I mean, at the end of the day, they're looking to this new U.S. Secretary of State to really lay the groundwork for what the future of this relationship will look like.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.